What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game. This is ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. You can always join us live at 11 a.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/the official ITG, as well as YouTube at ITG Reviews. But if you can't join us live, hit us up later. InsideTheGame.ca, podcast services, and TV streaming networks around the globe. You can always follow us over on Twitter, the official ITG. You can follow me personally at ArtisticGamer28, and you can follow Scott at Savage. Scott, welcome to the show, dude. You had me laughing before we even got started there. We were talking about voices, like the world premiere voice. The voiceover is awesome. World premiere, dude. It's just a wicked voiceover, right? It's just
the only voice that rivals that is EA Sports. It's in the game,
man. Yo, back in the day, that was sick too. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I remember playing MVP 98, and it when that came up, man, it was. Yeah.
Oh, it was NHL 07 for me.
Well, was it? Nice. Dude, we got a wicked show for us today. It's the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII. And wow, Square Enix has a few things to share for fans. What's this? Skull and Bones rating floats ashore, and it may surprise you what consoles it's coming to. And fans...
A message in a bottle.
Fans hold out hope for news on Fable. Let's get into today's show, Scott, because there's a lot going on. As Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary celebration broadcast unveiled first look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, and more. This comes from a press release I received yesterday. Dude, there's a lot going on.
Sounds like it's split into 8 different series like The Walking Dead did.
Man, there's so much happening here. It's ridiculous. Square Enix continued its celebration of Final Fantasy VII yesterday with the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary celebration stream, featuring the first look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for PlayStation 5 console. Scott, the sequel to 2020's critically acclaimed Final Fantasy VII Remake, the announcement of Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, and an HD remaster of the beloved prequel to Final Fantasy VII, a Steam Deck compatible version of Final Fantasy VII integrated for PC, and much more.
There's the big highlight for myself. Not being on Team PlayStation, while Intergrade coming for PC, finally I can get into that.
It's not that there's a lack of you wanting to be on the PlayStation ecosystem, it's the lack of owning a PS5.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I have one part of that secure, but now I just need to find the PlayStation 5.
Right? Yeah, and then it changes everything, dude. Yeah, let's get into it. As Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second story in the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, which tells the story of the iconic fantasy game that redefined the RPG genre in 3 distinct games. This is the part that kind of, dude, you and I were just talking about this off camera. I had no idea this is a trilogy.
Yeah, I remember when it was first announced. This is many years ago now, but I remember it being at least a 2-parter, but I'm pretty sure they went on to clarify 3 in total. Now, I know it seems to some that that's going to be kind of milking it, but the problem is that Final Fantasy VII was absolutely giant. It really can fill 3 games like this.
I think it makes sense to kind of separate it in today's terms. Speaking of milking it, dude, you ever heard of GTA? Like, seriously.
No, what's that?
Yeah, I know. At launch, Final Fantasy VII Remake was celebrated by players and critics alike, selling over 5 million copies worldwide. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is slated to launch next winter for PS5. So we tried to get Brad on the show. Brad is a massive Final Fantasy guy, but he joins us in chat over at twitch.tv/the official ITG, just like you can. He says, my concerns that there's going to be too much cut from the core game. Over 3 games though, Brad, you really think they're going to cut that much?
Yeah, how many games would you prefer to see? That's what I think of next.
Dude, they could do what they're doing with God of War, right? And giving us, Corey Barlog says, instead of stretching it over a trilogy, they give us 2 games. I'm like, yo, I'm down for that. Make them a little bit longer, but yet... right, Brad, you played Final Fantasy VII Remake. How long did that game take to finish? That's my curiosity, right? We are not the biggest Final Fantasy guys here whatsoever. I'm being upfront and honest about that. This is not my shiny moment for video games in this franchise. I played 10. I absolutely loved 10, and then from there I just fell off and kind of went other ways. But you know, looking at the remake of Final Fantasy VII, dude, it really has my interest. I did download it, and then we got on to other reviews that I just had to take it off my console. I was like, man, one of these days,
it's always a shame when that happens.
It sucks. You know, I love the new consoles, but man, there's no space on these things, right? Like, it's just whatever.
They could have had 3 times the space, and I wouldn't have complained. That would have made a little more sense.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm really hoping for a Final Fantasy VI remake. That's what I want.
There you go.
Yeah, the story is just a little bit different, but Kefka being the bad guy, he's like this clown that becomes like a god status clown. It's really weird, but it's the only clown I like, I think.
Brad says, just based on the fact that the first game was only Midgard, not including the rest of the world, which did go into disc 2, which was another 40 hours, and then disc 3, which is about another 15 hours there, Scott. So it's not for a lack of content, right? Like you said, Final Fantasy VII is absolutely huge. So maybe breaking it up over to 3 games. Here, when do you think we get the 3rd game?
Oh, I would still suspect that's several years away.
Well, let's get into it,
because
Scott.
We've only seen 1 so far.
Final Fantasy VII Remake series creative director says, quote, as revealed on the broadcast, there are currently 4 Final Fantasy VII projects being developed in parallel. That is insane. Although each of the 4 titles plays a different role, they are all connected through the high quality depictions of Final Fantasy VII's world and characters. As some who was involved in the development of each and every one of the original titles, I deeply understand the vision and thoughts behind each project. I am actively involved in the development process for all 4 titles. Dude, that's one heck of an undertaking.
Yeah, it must be busy over there.
No kidding. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is being designed so that people can enjoy this game whether they know the original game or not. In fact, new players might even enjoy starting their Final Fantasy VII journey with the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We should turn Final Fantasy VII into a drinking game. Who's down for that? Cloud and his friends embark on a new journey in the game and believe that the scenes that they witness are leaving Midgard will give players a fresh new experience. I can't wait to share the intention behind naming the first title Remake and the second title Rebirth. In time, I hope to reveal what the 3rd title will be called and where this journey will ultimately lead. Scott, lots going on, man.
Oh, there's a huge amount in Final Fantasy VII alone to pull from, and I'm struggling to remember it. Is Dirge of Cerberus surrounding Final Fantasy VII, or is that another title? Because then this could be a 4th in the remaster series, is what I'm thinking.
That's
not. Dirge of Cerberus is like the only Final Fantasy shooter that's ever been created. That's why it has my interest.
Gotcha. Brad says, what is that, Nomura?
Yeah, Nomura.
Said the game is game 3 is already in active development, so it sounds like it's well underway, while 2 wasn't happening in development while during COVID, which makes sense. There's a spin-off sequel to Advent Children. Cool.
I believe Advent Children is part of 7 though, as well.
Right. The development of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has been progressing rapidly since we adopted a new development structure. A title that of this scale, in which everything is interconnected even before production began, is truly rare. In fact, some development has already begun on the 3rd title. Wow. I myself have started on the development and am working towards the completion of the series. We will work to deliver this title to fans with the same amount of enthusiasm from now until we reach the finish line. In the meantime, please enjoy the other 25th anniversary projects that further expand the world of Final Fantasy VII. Dude, I have to jump in. Now at this point, I have no choice. I think I have to at least check out the remake and see if we can get in there and if it really connects and moves things forward.
I haven't played 7, so I'm definitely right behind you there. Like, yeah, 7 is one of those must-haves across gaming as a whole.
Yeah.
Just like The Witcher 3, I am missing that.
Oh, dude, did you not play The Witcher 3?
No, I still haven't.
Oh.
I keep seeing it on sale, and I think, well, I have the disc somewhere.
I put in 25, 30 hours, I think, into The Witcher 3, and then got pulled away. At this point, I'm waiting for the remake. Oh,
You've
yeah.
just barely seen the intro,
Yeah,
from what I
exactly.
hear.
No, it
Oh,
is
speaking of
huge.
that intro, I couldn't get into it. I started the game up
Really?
one time. It was super long, cinematic. Geralt's in a bathtub, and I thought, yeah, maybe another time.
We should do a segment called the worst intros, and I think Metal Gear Solid 5 would be on my list. Final Fantasy.
That flaming whale has a lot to do with the storyline.
Oh man, I still
You just don't get it.
I do not understand it yet, but yeah, I'm working my way through it. It's such a great game though. Once you get past that first hour, dude, I love it. But Final Fantasy VII Remakes series producer and Final Fantasy VII director said, quote, "We have officially announced that the second title, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, will be released next winter, approximately 3 years after the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, released in April 2020. 3 years may feel like a long time for all the fans who are eagerly awaiting the next game, but we want to offer the best experience possible and reassure everyone that the development is proceeding at an astonishingly fast pace for such a large-scale HD title. Making the middle part of the trilogy has its own challenges, but there are plenty of classic second installments in the world of film that are defined by stunning story twists and deep explorations of the characters. Often these second installments become a favorite amongst the fans. In the same vein, we are aiming to make Final Fantasy VII Rebirth an even more gripping and memorable experience than Final Fantasy VII Remake. So please wait a little while longer to finish up, Scott." Dude, that's pretty cool.
Setting some expectations pretty high
Right?
for that second one. And
Sure are.
while I'm listening to that, I'm thinking of the Star Wars prequels. Well, I did like Clone Wars. That was the second one in that series, and that was because they had a whole lot they had to get done in the small amount of space. So I think that might be true of this game.
Northern Nerdcast says it's good you haven't played the OG Final Fantasy VII. You will be disappointed in how much it hasn't changed. Well, I get it. How much has added and changed. I think this new adaptation of Final Fantasy VII Remake might be my entry point into the franchise. I think kind of returning.
The only question I have is, can I actually save Aerith this time?
I don't know, but the broadcast.
I suspect you can.
The broadcast also marked the announcement of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, a remaster to the PlayStation Portable exclusive. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, the 2007 cult action RPG and prequel, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Man, oh man, there's a lot. And this one's coming out, Scott, launching this winter on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One consoles, PC, and Nintendo Switch. So there you go. And it's also going to be compatible with Steam Deck, which is pretty cool.
I like to see that split across. They're coming to all consoles now. One of them's coming to PC, and a lot of people are really angry about that, actually. Brad threw it up in our Discord earlier. There's a petition now to boycott Square Enix.
I saw that. Yeah.
Based on
going Xbox? Come on.
Oh, man. I don't get it.
Yep.
No, I have the same reaction to that. Grow up.
Yep. Absolutely. Suck it up. Let everybody enjoy the good games where they want to play them. If they don't have Xbox or they don't have PlayStation, then who cares? As long as they got something to play on, that's all that matters. The more people that can experience these games, the better it is for not only all of us, but for the entire industry. So
I'll take it a step further. I endorse that same thought if Halo came to PlayStation.
Dude, that will never happen.
It will never happen for many reasons. But I'd just be happy that a lot of people get to play it. Okay, now play it and tell me if it's better or worse than Killzone.
No, absolutely. Scott, one thing that we didn't think will see the light of day is Skull and Bones rated for PS5, Xbox Series X, PC, and Stadia, but not for PS4 and Xbox One. This comes over at Twisted Voxel. Ubisoft's global pirate adventure Skull and Bones has been in development for a long time, and it might have scrapped the PS4 and Xbox One versions. The game was recently rated in Brazil for multiple platforms, but there has been no mention of the possible PS4 and Xbox One version. The rating suggests it will be released for Google Stadia, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. I'm going to say /S, Scott. I think that's safe to say that. Go ahead. there have been quite a few rumors that have suggested the game had a tumultuous development cycle and has been rebooted again a couple of years ago. Scott, I think this game's been rebooted a few times.
Yeah, no, we've read just little scraps of information coming out here and there, but it's been developed for a super long time. It must have restarted.
You have to think so, right? As a release window inched closer, it was nowhere to be found, as it was shown again and faced multiple delays from 2018 to 19 and 2020. It was finally revealed that the game might launch in 2021, but even that ended up being optimistic. As it was pushed back to April 2022, March to 2023 fiscal year for Ubisoft. Skull and Bones was developed the concept of the player controlling a pirate ship like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It was you were the ship, Scott. Was there? Oh man, I don't know about that. We're starting to see the transition though, Scott. I think is the biggest thing. No Xbox One, no PS4. It sounds like it's going to next gen only.
Oh, after so much development time, though, I wonder was there a lot of effort and resources that are now wasted?
Oh, man,
because they must have been developing, 8 years ago or whatever when this started. It would not have been on major new consoles.
Well, it was showcased at E3 in 2017. So that was 5 years ago. And before that, you have to think it's been in development for maybe 2-3 years prior to that. Last I heard, there's about $120 million invested in this game, and they are not going to make that back, dude. I can't see it. I cannot see it. But what I want to see...
that just means they're going to have loot boxes.
Oh, man. Don't do that to me, Scott. Come on, it's Friday. Be nice, buddy. Xbox Insider gives fans some good news about Fable. Tyler Fisher of comicbook.com. There has been rumblings and rumors that Playground Games, the developer behind Forza Horizon, one of my favorite racing games of all time, is having development woes with its Fable reboot. Well, what are your thoughts on, let's see, even before we get into the rest of the article, what are your thoughts on Playground jumping in and taking over for Fable?
Well, there's cheesy jokes that come to mind. I wish they would just race to the finish line. I try not to think about that too long, but no, it is obviously out of their normal wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit more forgiving about that. But how long has this been in development for now, too? Was that announced also 2017?
Not quite.
Perfect Dark.
It was, I think I was talking to Kyle about this. You and I first covered the reveal at a showcase. I think it was like the Xbox showcase. And I want to say it
must have been 19.
Right? I think it was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Because we were at the old place.
That would have been about 3 years ago. Yeah.
But let's continue.
It feels like that part of my life is just a big blur now. So it's a little hard for me to determine what was 2020
for sure.
Beyond.
We've heard through these rumblings and rumors that the game's scope had to be reduced after getting too ambitious. Well, that is the nature of Fable, isn't it? We've also heard the team is simply having issues making an open world RPG, not only because the engine they are using isn't, oh no way, are they using the Forza engine? That isn't really meant for these types of games, but because they have minimal experience making these types of games. At the moment, these are just rumblings and rumors. The project was announced back in July 2020, Scott. Since then, we've seen, so that was 2 years ago. Announced. You got to think we're probably 2 more years from getting it. You think
that would make sense under a normal development kind of window, but then we have to factor in this is kind of a weird engine, not a normal bread and butter for this company, so it might be a little bit longer, but I would expect to see something soon.
Yeah, hopefully it would be nice. So we're hoping to see the Xbox Bethesda showcase, but I think we're being a little more optimistic than actually was capable
outside of 12 months away, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Since then, we've seen nothing about it or only heard troubling rumors. Having heard nothing about the game in almost 2 years is as a potential worrying sign. You'd expect the game to resurface this year, but it looks like it's not going to, suggesting the game was either announced too early or Playground Games are moving slowly with the project, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it may seem like it for Fable fans. Well, yeah, it's disappointing, right? You get that announcement and then it just goes silent. It's like, okay, I get you're working on the game, but what do you got to show us? Absolutely.
Well, it gives us worry. Beyond Good and Evil is the biggest one that comes to mind. We saw something and we should never have seen that.
Not at all. No, not at all, man. I can't believe we've seen absolutely nothing on that game. That blows my mind too. Xbox
Money on the table.
just had a big E3 style show, and the game was a no-show, which would be more alarming if the show wasn't focused on games releasing within the next 12 months. Scott, you think they kind of planned it that way? Here's the next 12 months. That way you're not worried if you don't see Fable. That's because it's not coming out next year, right? And they kind of set expectations that way, I think, which was probably a good move on Xbox part.
It took away a lot of the question. Like, okay, we're not going to see Perfect Dark. We're not going to see Fable yet. Just kind of get that out of my mind. So I'm not waiting.
Everwild.
Yeah. Although what I was waiting for the whole time was GoldenEye. Still waiting. Still waiting.
We're still waiting. That said, while it's a no-show isn't alarming as it looks, everything is starting to come together and fill the heads of Fable fans with some concerns. If you're one of these fans, a new report has some decent news for you. According to Xbox insider and leaker Jez Corden, the game's development has been going fine. Now, Corden, speaking to the Xbox 2 podcast, doesn't say that the game's development is going well, but fine. Is certainly a lot better than what others have been floating. In other words, conflicting reports are better than one-way traffic saying the game is in trouble. I get it, Scott, but we're still kind of up in the air waiting for more news, aren't we?
Yeah, well, it has not been confirmed to be in good health yet.
No, which does kind of raise a couple of alarms, right? If you're looking for this next iteration of Fable and you're kind of questioning what's happening over there, where is the game? How's the progression going? Xbox Playground Games gone absolutely silent on the game does bring up a couple concerns for fans of the franchise, right? This one's been dormant for so long.
Are they going to throw us, what was it, Fable Dungeons? In the
Fable
meantime,
Legends.
Give us something to chew on. Fable Legends.
Yes. Yeah, that was a weird take, man. I knew that game wasn't going to happen.
There's a bit of experience you have that I never will, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was at that Xbox Fan Fest and got hands on. I actually interviewed the developers on the team working on that game, and they had all kinds of enthusiasm and looked excited for the game, but playing it, I was like, man, this doesn't seem like Fable at all, right? Like, it was one of those games. It's funny because now we're in that stage of, you get games like Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th, where you have one that is the villain or a dungeon master.
Evolve.
Oh, dude, I miss that game.
Bad example.
Man, I miss that game. Oh, I still miss that game. It was such a cool game too.
It was.
Come on, Turtle Rock, build on it. Let's get us Evolve 2.
I think I played it like a year before I met you, which would have been perfect had I actually played that game with you. We could have kept it going.
Dude,
just like Hood. I'm still waiting on Hood for you, buddy.
No. I gave up on Hood. Rest in peace. You can join Evolve, unfortunately. Scott, we do have some announcements and releases. He's hitting up my brother now. Yo, help me out.
Yeah, Darren and Crystal can take it on.
That's right. Absolutely. Scott, what do we have for announcements and releases today?
We have an announcement by 11-Bit Studios. They announced Project Vitrio. Our game is a deep, morally ambitious, narrative-driven RPG, said Jacob Brokos of Fool's Theory. Sorry, he is the CEO project lead at Fool's Theory. Quote, but let me avail a bit of the real essence. This game is about the esoteric side of reality, the dark part of the world that most of us don't see and are not aware of. But the darkness, it is there. Lurking behind every corner, it watches us closely from the shadows, and whether we know it or not, takes its toll, making sure we're going to have a debt to pay. Vitriol's story begins in a place and time where reality, folklore, energy, and mysticism meet together in a melting pot. This sounds really cool. There is a global reveal of Project Vitriol coming this summer, so we will learn more.
I'm excited, dude. I'm excited. Anything that 11-Bit Studios is attached to, I want to know more.
Oh, this is certainly mysterious. And by that little elevator pitch, I'm definitely curious. We also have full releases today. Final Vendetta on PS5 and PC. And Oxide Room 104, also on PS5, PC.
Oxide Room 104 looks like your game. But Scott, that's going to wrap up today's show, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. This has been ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. You can always join us live at 11 a.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/theofficial_ITG, as well as YouTube at ITG Reviews. But if you can't join us live, hit us up later inside the game.ca podcast services and TV streaming networks around the globe. Until next week, everybody, enjoy your weekend. I'm Drew, that's Scott, and we'll see you inside the game.